On this episode of Ask the Experts, we're talking about working remotely while traveling. And here we have Nora Dunn from The Professional Hobo. Hi, Nora.
Hi, Rick. Nice to be here today.
It's nice to have you here. So where are you in this world?
I'm currently in Toronto, Canada. I'm coming up on 365 days in one place, city or country. And honestly, I can't remember the last time that has happened. It's probably been more than 30 years that I haven't traveled either for my career or just for vacations.
Well, I totally understand. My last real holiday actually was up here with some friends. We went to Antarctica. It's already been over a year.
'Tis a sign of the times, isn't it?
For sure. So tell me, what is The Professional Hobo all about?
The Professional Hobo started off as almost a joke. I was making fun of myself. And it came out about 2007. So in 2006, I sold everything that I owned, which included a busy financial planning practice here in Toronto, Canada. And the reason was to embrace dreams of long-term travel. I just knew I had to hit the road and discover whatever I discover. I had no idea how long I would travel for, what I would do, how I would make money. I just knew I had to go. And by the way, I don't recommend that you do that. But I did that. And initially, as I was traveling through North America in the first year or so, people would ask me, I'd meet people and they would ask the standard question. What's the first question you normally ask when you meet somebody? What do you do? And I no longer had a good answer. So I thought, okay, well, I'm a homeless person, but I want to add a professional edge to it. So I called myself a professional hobo, basically to make fun of myself. And it stuck. I was able to embody this moniker over the following 12 years of full-time travel because concurrent to my full-time travel lifestyle, I developed an online business. And that business was in content creation, travel blogging, freelance writing. And of course, I parlayed my expertise as a former certified financial planner to eventually teach people how to travel full-time in a financially sustainable way. So really, I am the professional hobo.
Incredible. Wow. I had to wing it, but I figured it out too. You know, traveling doesn't have to be expensive.
No, in fact, I have found that the cost to live on the road full time has consistently been less than I ever paid to live in one place. And I can prove it because for 10 years, I recorded and published my annual income and expense reports. So you can actually see my actual cost of full-time travel includes not only travel expenses, but life expenses along the way, as well as what I earned. So I was able to prove with reports that I was traveling full-time, financially sustainable way. Now, for the last 2 years, I've been back in my hometown of Toronto. I've had a home base here from which pandemic notwithstanding, I've continued to travel for about half of a year. And of course, my expenses are higher. I mean, big surprise, right? I've got to pay rent even when I'm not here. And also there's this weird compulsion to buy things. Happens when you have a place to put stuff in. Suddenly you want to buy more stuff to put in that place. So as much as I'm really a minimalist at heart, I can't always get around that, consumerist desire.
Right. Well, all of the malls are closed. So that's, I'm sure, is helping your bottom line.
Well, it's interesting because the numbers have come out from 2020 and reports across the board are that people have actually saved a lot more money than they've spent over years prior. And of course, the pandemic has been the idea, the driving force behind that. But I find it odd. I almost expected the statistics and reports to go the other way because we've been home. People have been bored. Everybody's been online, and just look at the price of Amazon stock and pretty quickly what people have been doing. They've been buying things on Amazon. So I'm actually a little bit surprised that expenses haven't gone up, but I guess people have saved money on discretionary spending like restaurants.
Yeah. As an investor in Amazon,
movie, theater.
As an investor in Amazon, I can definitely attest to their stock price. I'm very, very pleased with it. So if for all of you who are watching this video, keep buying from Amazon. So are you still writing? Is that your job, freelance writing currently? Or do you have other things that you're working on?
So career-wise, it's been an interesting journey. I started blogging back in the pioneer days when blogging as a monetizable experiment was not even a thing. So I was one of the early adopters of blogging and one of the people on the leading edge of the travel blogging industry. And as such, because there wasn't a lot of competition at the time, I was able to really make a name for myself. And my blog got pretty big pretty quickly, which was lovely. And I also think that the freelance writing that I was doing really helped me grow my blog because it exposed me to many audiences. And from an SEO standpoint, I got all kinds of valuable backlinks before I even knew what SEO stood for.
Right.
So fast forward to about 2020. Beginning of 2020, in 2019, I'd actually basically given up all of my freelance gigs and I doubled down on my website and my blog because it was really growing quite fantastically. And by the beginning of 2020, I was having banner months in January and February. My blog was getting more traffic than it ever had, and I was bathing in income. And then the pandemic happened. And in March, nobody was traveling. The travel industry got pummeled. So I lost half of my traffic and more than half of my income. And then in May, I got pummeled again by a Google algorithm update that slashed another half of my traffic and my income. So in the summer of 2020, I had to take a really hard look at what I was doing and at the actual just kind of viability of a website unto itself as a viable business model. And I realized I had to make some changes. So by the time a few months later, I'd kind of finished licking my wounds and I was ready to take a closer look at how I could leverage the expertise and experience that I have from 12 years of full-time travel and former certified financial planner. And I saw a trend, and that trend was now dozens of countries have been offering all of these remote work visas, which are special visas, usually linked to attract remote workers. Why? Because, of course, the pandemic has necessitated that most companies go remote. So now there is a huge number of newly minted remote workers, people who are able to telecommute, where formerly they had to go into an office. And even when the pandemic ends, and only a small percentage of companies are actually going to go back to the office model. Many people are going to continue to be able to work remotely. And some of those people are going to be interested in taking their jobs on the road and traveling long-term or full-time. And that's where I come in. I help people to take care of all those pesky logistics of how to travel and work remotely, how to be productive, how do you arrange your finances, what do you do about your mail, what kind of credit cards should you have, what's good work-life balance. So anything from the logistics of arranging your finances and your affairs so you can travel long-term to the reality of life on the road, working while traveling.
That sounds amazing. So what are some of the surprises that someone might find when they start traveling abroad and working, freelancing from somewhere else? What could they be surprised about?
I think one of the first things that many people, myself included, will be, or I have been, and one thing many people will be surprised about is the pace of travel so you don't burn out and you can realistically explore your destinations. As an example, you might think that a month in a destination and then moving on to another destination and spending a month there and then moving on to another place, that seems like a pretty good pace of travel, right? You're there for a whole month. Mm-hmm. But if you're applying the vacation mindset, that's what makes sense. Because when you go on vacation, you don't have any work to do and you're going to make the most of your destination. So all day, every day, you're going out and doing stuff. So in a week or two, you can get a really good sense of what a destination is. You figure, okay, double that amount of time. I'm there for a month. I'm good to go. No. When you are working full, consider what your daily routine is like when you're at home. When you are working full time, there is only a small amount of time that you would spend to do something touristy. It usually would happen on your weekends, and it would only be for part of those days on the weekends because you would have other errands to do. You'd have shopping and cooking, even resting and relaxing. So when you are working abroad, when you close your laptop, you have the ability to discover a whole new destination, but consider as well the time and energy that it really takes to travel. So think about this. You've got to choose a destination. You've got to research it. You've got to figure within a country what the best city is to be in, and within a city what the best neighborhood is. Then you've got to book your travel arrangements. Then you've got to get there and you've got to find accommodation and see where the supermarket is and learn how to live there. And by the time you've done all that, it's time to choose your next destination. So my primary piece of advice for anyone who wants to take their job on the road is go slow, and go slower than you even think you need to go. These countries that are offering 1-year remote work visas are not far off the mark. In my 12 years of travel, I set up home bases along the way, probably 4 or 5 times. And those home bases I used them anywhere from 3 months to even 2 years in some of these places. And I definitely took trips from those places. But to have that base of operations for many months really allowed me to sink my teeth into the local culture, which is an incredibly rewarding experience. But then also I could pace myself and make sure that I got the work done that I had to do.
That makes total sense. Funny thing is that when I travel, I typically travel on a cruise ship. But so I'm seeing a city for 37 seconds. However, I'm not usually working from, I'm not working at the same time. And so, yeah, that's definitely a difference. However, I can certainly understand because, as I mentioned earlier, I moved to Italy from Canada, and I, for the first little while, just considered this as being my change of home base, as you said. And so instead of traveling from Canada to here and there and everywhere, I just changed where I started, and now, of course, I'm stuck for a little bit, but I think we're at the end of this little pandemic issue, so time will tell. But what do you suggest to people who are hoping to get back traveling? What is your suggestion to them? Should they be saving up right now? Should they even be thinking about traveling? What do you suggest to them?
I certainly think that while we still cannot travel or should not travel, I think that it's fabulous to save money for travel. I think it's great to plan for travel, to dream about where you'd like to be, to start to plan out a trip, and saving in advance for travel. I firmly believe that you should not go into debt to travel. That's consumer debt at its worst. You will pay the price literally and figuratively to go into debt to travel. So if you're going to travel for a vacation or otherwise, have the money in the bank before you go. So now is a perfect time to save and plan for your future adventure. Another thing I would highly recommend is pay very attention to the travel insurance that you get, because the insurance industry, like many industries related to travel, is being overhauled right now. Because, of course, last year in 2020, there were all kinds of insurance problems with claims that were not being honored because of the pandemic. So it's important to get insurance that also includes pandemic coverage, and which also means it's important to read your policy, as soul destroying as it may be. Read it cover to cover. Make sure that you will be covered in the event of a medical emergency abroad. Trust me, because I have had this happen. I've had a few medical emergencies abroad. I have had to use travel insurance, and you really need to know what you're covered for before you get into hot water.
That is great advice. Actually, I had a situation where I got to use a trip cancellation insurance on a credit card for a medical reason. And I recall that my banker had told me that if you ever need to use the insurance on a credit card, to call the insurance company immediately and find out what it is that you need in advance. So get it in advance, and then you can submit it. That way you're organized later on. And wouldn't you know it, all I needed to know in this particular case was I needed a document that said patient cannot travel today, signed by the doctor, and that was it. That was all I needed. But because I was at the hospital, how on earth would I ever get to see the same doctor again to get this letter? But because I knew it in advance, I got that letter, and guess what? The refund came in 20 days, something like that. I was shocked.
That's absolutely brilliant. Really, whether it's cancellation insurance, credit card insurance, any kind of insurance, the first thing to do always is to call the insurance company. Because from a travel medical insurance perspective, if you seek medical attention before you've called the insurance company, they can, in some cases, deny the claim.
Yep.
Because you went to the wrong hospital or you got the, and now obviously you're not always able to call the insurance company, if you're flat on your back or you're unconscious or what. And so, there is a certain amount of leeway in there, but always call the insurance company first. And like you say, they'll tell you exactly what you need, which will infinitely help you in the claims process. Yep. The other thing that'll help you in the claims process is to document everything within an inch of its life and keep copies of everything, because you often have to send original copies of receipts into the insurance company. And if you don't have copies yourself, then you can't advocate when they mess up a claim. Yep. And it happens. Yep. And I've had to do it. So great definitely advice. Keep copies of everything.
Great advice. Now, in my case, I didn't have to, but to provide, I did everything online. The insurance company had an online portal. I was able to upload PDFs of everything, but I completely believe it. I once had, I had a purchase protection on an item. It was on a TD credit card, and it was an item that I bought. It broke. It was covered under the warranty, but they wanted the original receipt. They wanted the box. And they wanted a printout of the credit card statement. The printout of the credit card statement was enough, but they wanted the original box and the original receipt. I'm like, who keeps this stuff? Like, really?
I know it is a little ridiculous. And in the insurance industry, actually, it is generally speaking, the most types of claims to get money back on are anything that have to do with belongings. Any type of loss of property insurance and loss of belongings. Those are the most difficult because of exactly that reason. They're looking for original receipts, and sometimes they're looking for proof that you've used it. Like you actually need photographs of you using the item to prove that it's something that you own and logistically use yourself. I mean, it's just, who does that?
Yeah. Nora Dunn, this has been most enlightening. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Ask the Experts. I definitely hope to chat with you soon.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. The time has flown by.
It did.
And certainly if anybody wants to ask me some more questions, you can visit me anytime at theprofessionalhobo.com. And that's my home online. And you can find all my other avenues, which include YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all these things from the website.
Yes. And I've gone ahead and I've left all of the links in the description below.
Perfect. Thank you.
See you. Take care.